Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's yet again 15 minutes of your time talk show, and today our guest is Tracy Kawira. An interesting topic, quite a bit, parental responsibility. Today we get to decipher the entire puzzle that we've been having growing up, because some of us, our butts, do know our mom's sleepers, and we don't know whether that was their responsibility, their rights, their powers, or just their duty as parents. So, on this session for today, we dig into the parental responsibilities, and our guest is Tracy Kawira. Over to you, Jeramel.
Thank you, Linus. I'll do a brief bio of our guest today. Our guest today is Tracy Kawira Kaburu. She's a law student at University of Embu. She's transitioning to the fourth year. She's a student leader, currently serving as the Secretary General of the University of Embu Student Organization. Uh, as some may say, but do we say she's the first female Secretary General since the inception of the Student Association? She works at the Kenya Model United Nations as an executive assistant to the National Secretariat. She has participated in writing competitions and moot competitions where she has received accolades for the same. She's an inspiring academic and researcher with a keen interest in constitutional law, administrative law, child law, and international law. Over to you, Linus.
Quite an impressive bio that is, Jeramel. Thank you very much. So Tracy, in the preamble of Article 31, as I was going through, it states that in this act, the act of parental responsibility, they were trying to define the terms, and they go saying parental responsibility means all the duties, rights, powers, responsibilities, and authority by which by law a parent of a child has in relation to the child. Just wondering, what's the difference between parental rights, responsibilities, and duties? Because that's what it left me wondering.
Uh, Thank you, Linus and Jeremy, for inviting me to the show. First of all, is to acknowledge that the Children Act 2022 amendment is now fully in effect from today. And you asked about what's the difference between duties, responsibilities, and rights. Okay, for me, I really do not see any difference at all, especially, okay, maybe from a law perspective, there's a difference, but essentially it's just everything that a parent ought to do to actually bring the child. Because when you look maybe at Article 53, it actually expounds on the rights of the child, like the right to actually name and give identity to the child. So essentially that's the right of the child. So then that translates to the parent having a duty to actually ensure that the child is actually named and has a responsibility to ensure that that identity follows through until the child. So essentially it's just one and the same thing when it comes to actually bringing up the child. Yeah.
Oh, seems like just a way of trying to ensure that all words and terminologies have been put into perspective. And also, in your opinion, is the law sufficiently fine-tuned, or is there any judicial inconsistencies in the understanding of parental responsibility?
I think the current Children Act has actually been able to cover most of the loopholes that were within the Children Act, but we cannot say that there was really an issue with the parent responsibility and what have you, because it provides for both ways, whether you're married or not married. You see, so yeah, that section, or rather Part 3 of the Children Act, is well within all aspects with regard to actually bringing a child. Yeah.
Okay, because okay, this is just by the way, but as I was reading, there's a statement whereby it was stating that it's actually the parent has a responsibility to decide whether the child should get medical care, or where the child should get the medical care, and when, and how, and all that. The parent has all that rights and responsibilities, which somehow made me question, does it in some sort of way conflict with the child's rights? whereby they say every child has a right to proper medical care. This is just a bit of a clarity question.
Okay. Whether if the child actually medical, the parent actually okay, yeah. I think when you look at there are different aspects of a child. We have child or tender years, mostly 10 and below. Then from that aspect, then the parent actually has the duty to actually know where the child needs. They have a responsibility to actually ensure the child is taken care of in terms of medical insurance, where the child is going to be taken to the hospital, what kind of medicines they're supposed to take. But then when you look at a child between 10 and 18, then at that point, then the court, in as much as the parent has a responsibility, then at times you find that the court will actually listen, or rather to the wishes of the child, so that at the end of the day, when they're coming up with a decision in case there's any issue, then it will be to the best interest of the child. They'll listen to the parent, what they want, they'll listen to the child, because at that point, like, the child can actually make a decision as to what they want. And then best interest of the child will always prevail at the end of the day. Yeah.
Wow, we really admire our law and constitution. And also just, it stated that a child's mother automatically has parental rights over the child, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but is there any possible way that one can remove parental responsibilities from someone, especially if they are still mentally fit? Because there are still exceptions there. And if so, how and under what conditions? And I hope my mom isn't listening to this. And in case you are mom, it's just a question. Yeah, I'm not trying to remove any parental responsibilities from you. Just saying.
Yes, but automatically, if a child is one of tender years, that is 10 and below, they're automatically given to the mother. But there are circumstances under which a mother, like the mother, cannot actually take full responsibility of the child. For instance, as you've said, when the child is actually, when the mother has issues like mental issues and what have you, then at that point, then the father or someone who, according to the court, can actually take care and control the child until a certain age, then yes, parental responsibility can actually be transferred to another person, either the father or someone else who has been assigned that role by the court. Yes.
Jeremy, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Now getting on to my set of questions. There is a paper that came back. I did write on. It was a commentary on some children's case that was adjudicated by Justice Agrey Muchelule. And the title of that paper is that of children born without the benefit of the clergy, who bears their parental responsibility, an acute look-see of Justice Agrey Muchelule decision in EKTM versus ECC 2020. And in that article, I did paraphrase some words used by somebody. He asked this question: if I have my house help, whom I've been, perhaps maybe the house help has a child, and I've been paying towards his school fees or towards his medical care and name it. And to some extent, one might argue that I've assumed parental responsibility over my house help's son or daughter. So what will happen when one day I just decide that to stop that? Will I be sued, or what is the provision of the law, or what's your point of view on the same?
That's a very interesting case, whereby someone assumes okay, is the child the father's or just the house help's child? Just a clarification.
I know the house help came with the child. Me as a person, I'm not related to the son of the house help.
Okay. Very interesting. I don't know. In my opinion, I don't know. I'm not sure, but in my opinion, then if I have assumed responsibilities over a child, then automatically, and with if no other person is actually claiming responsibility over the same, then yeah, you can continue like actually taking care and having control over that. But then that means it can actually bring up a lot of issues or legal aspects of it, especially if the father comes back and what have you. So I don't know, like you can get into agreements, parental responsibility agreements, which can work well because then you know this house help actually helps you. So in return, you're helping the child. But essentially, I see no issue with actually assuming responsibilities of a child because in our how do I put it? But rather in our societal aspect, the children are for the community. So yes, I think quite interesting case. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, because I used it as the starting phrase for that article because I saw it somewhere online. Somebody was giving a
Mhm.
commentary, but okay, you've given your point of view on the same. And now
Jurisprudence. Yeah.
we have section 33 of the Children's Act, the one which takes effect today. It talks about parental responsibility agreement, which you have alluded to. It says that the parents of a child who are not married to each other may enter into a parental responsibility agreement in the prescribed form, whereby both, in the best interest of the child, they'll give clear individual responsibilities towards the child. But the big question is, can the court be able to revoke a parental responsibility agreement? And if so, in what circumstances?
Yes. With regard to essentially parental responsibility agreements come in the instance where we're talking about co-parenting and what have you. Yeah, and a court can actually terminate a, an agreement. One, it automatically terminates once the child attains the age of 18. In other instances, maybe is when one of the parent actually now wants to revoke it, and the other one is the child, the child themselves. But then in this case, the court has to assess whether it's the right thing to do.
Okay, getting on to my last question. Uh, we always have this traditional thinking on how societies work, on how families work. And in fact, I think we should invite you next on matters to do with gender roles and law and the gender over time. But leave alone that. To this question. Uh, there is how the father is always perceived in the traditional sense. There's also how the place of the mother is perceived in the traditional sense. Now, getting on to maybe the postmodern world or the current world that we are in, question to you: is there equality of parental responsibility? The father has more responsibility than the mother. Like, is there inequality, or if there isn't, who has the higher parental responsibility according to you?
Well, I don't know, like you just touched on my feminist side, but I'll try to be a bit civil. um, who has, I think, okay, essentially, per the law, we the both parent like have joint responsibility over the child. But I love what the court actually stated in, I don't know, it monkey case. I think can't recall the case, but rather when you talk about the law on equality, essentially it's just not something on um it doesn't have to apply the same to each and every person, because if you do that, then the courts will always have to review each and every legislation, which and then will be quite unreasonable and unjust. So in this case, when you talk about who actually bears the superior responsibility or who has an inferior responsibility when it comes to the child, then it depends, because at times you cannot actually say that. if both parents are actually earning the same income and both of them have like flow of income, like each and every month yearly, then each and every parent should be able to actually share the responsibilities equally. But if there's a case whereby the one of the parents is actually not let's say is not employed, is dependent on casual and live like that, then you cannot actually say that they have to share the responsibilities equally. Then in that instance, then the person with a higher salary will have to uh, bear a bit much of the cost. Yeah. So if we put it everything on an equal scale, then someone somewhere is not really will suffer. But at the end of the day, the child is ours and we all have to take that responsibility. Yeah.
Getting on to perhaps the last question, can the parental responsibility be transmitted from, maybe not transmitted, I think that's the wrong term.
Yeah.
Maybe can it to another person? Sorry, can it be passed to another person?
Yes. Parental, actually, that is one of the powers that a parent has with regard to a child, to actually transfer responsibility. And in this instance, if the mother dies, uh, the responsibility can be transferred to the father, or rather a guardian through a tested, like something like a will, and vice versa. If the father dies, the mother takes custody and maybe a guardian through a will. Yeah, so you can transfer responsibilities.
Okay, I think that comes to the end of the session. It seems we lost one of the co-hosts, Linus, but we'll see. Thank you for coming, and I think we'll invite you for the next sessions, especially the one dealing with the feminism and yeah, the gender stuff. You are highly recommended to me by folks known to you on the same. So I think that will be well. Maybe in the subsequent sessions, be sure that we'll be able to invite you. And also thank you for accepting the request to be one of our guests in the show.